I'd like to call a meeting to order and apologize for being late. If everybody can stand and we can recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Solicitor Schultes has some comments for us, please.
Council held an executive session tonight from 6:30 p.m. to 7:10 p.m. Regarding union negotiations and non-union wage rates under Section 708A1, 708A2 of the Sunshine Act. Also, to review matters of agency business which, if conducted in public, would violate a lawful privilege under 708A5.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I guess we'll start out here, well, I guess I have it kind of backwards, with public comment. Public comment for those here in the room, state your name, your address, and please sit up here at the microphone so you can be recorded, I suppose.
Good evening, Art Becker, 529 Carlisle Street. May I proceed?
Yeah, floor is yours.
Thank
Oh,
you.
please proceed, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Used to be in a courtroom where a judge tells you it's okay to proceed.
I'm not quite a judge.
I represent numerous property owners in the borough, both landlords and tenants. I'm here tonight to talk about two things, the IPMC and the rental unit inspection ordinance. I'd like to start with the IPMC. The IPMC, which you adopted, allows you to inspect all residential properties in the borough. It doesn't matter if you own or rent. Doesn't matter. The borough can inspect your property. That's what the IPMC says. If the borough comes in and inspects your property and decides, for example, that your kitchen doesn't meet code, and they give you a chance to correct it, and you don't correct it because you're a senior on a limited income, or you can't afford to correct it, you face the prospect of fines or imprisonment. Doesn't matter. This IPMC is extreme. It's divisive. It's completely unnecessary. There is, when I've made this argument in the past in other municipalities about the IPMC, I get one of two or three initial reactions. One, that's not true. Number two, Mr. Becker's lying. Number three, that's not our intent. Once boroughs or townships realize that that's what they've adopted, sometimes they don't even realize those provisions are in there. Well, I assure you, Mr. Becker's not lying. I have cited the exact provision in the IPMC that I gave to each one of you, or to your solicitor to give to each one of you, that shows the paragraph in the IPMC that allows for this inspection. All residential properties in the borough. I gave this to you, I gave it to you so you could see this is a fact. And sometimes when people see that, they say, oh, okay, well, we didn't realize that was not our intent. If that was not the intent, then I'm going to ask you to repeal the IPMC. Each of the three provisions, 9, 12, and 15, in their entirety, we go home, we don't have to worry about local government coming in and invading our privacy. You can still adopt portions of the IPMC. For example, the decking provision, there's already an ordinance that says we, the borough, adopted the IPMC decking requirements. Fine, that is not adopting the entire IPMC. And that's already something that you've done, it's fine. There are all kinds of reasons why the IPMC, or all kinds of examples that the IPMC conflicts with your ordinance. You have to follow the most restrictive. Is it the IPMC? Is the borough ordinance? I don't have time to get into all the examples. I imagine that there was probably not a lot of discussion about that, because in October of 2020, when the council adopted the 2015 IPMC, I think we went back and looked at the video. I think there was 17 minutes of discussion. You could probably take 2 hours to talk about the different examples of where the IPMC conflicts with your code, to give the main examples. If it's not your intent to have these inspections, then why are we moving forward with appointing a code official? Why are we moving forward to begin the inspection process for rental properties? No one wants the IPMC. Landlords don't want it, tenants don't want it, obviously borough residents don't want it. You might recall the last time that we were here 3 years ago. I believe that Councilwoman Rupp might be the only council person left who was advocating a rental unit inspection at that time. There were 2 of you that opposed it that time, but for some reason it was put back on the agenda tonight. We're not sure why. Nothing has changed. First, there's not one single reason to require rental unit inspections. Chief Klauser, when he was here the last time, admitted that there was not one fire, not one death in the borough that would have been avoided by a rental unit inspection. He was here. He said that. What happened since then? Not one fire would have been avoided. I didn't hear anybody in the discussion about this when this passed a month or so ago. There was not one example given why we need to have a rental unit inspection. There is already a registration process. There was a discussion about the need for data and a registration process. The borough, as those of you may know, I don't know that anyone here has rental properties, but if you do, there's already an ordinance that says that a landlord must notify the borough of a change of a tenant. This is a registration. If you don't do it, you're subject to fines or imprisonment. That's already an ordinance. That's already required for the landlords. There's already a database that the borough could put together using this information. If this is not sufficient, you have the Hanover Public School District that has a database with every single resident in the borough and whether they have children in school, including children that are homeschooled or in cyber school. I'm sure that there's a way that you could figure out how to access that information. One of the issues that came up was there's a need for safety to have an access to that information. I've never heard of a fire call or an EMS call to 911 where they look at a database, can't figure out how many children are in a residence, and they call off the call. Sorry, Bob, we can't go there. We don't know how many kids live in that property. No, that will never happen. They're going to show up. They're going to do their job. They're going to take care of the problem. There doesn't need to be a database. It'd be nice to have. There's no doubt, but you have a database you can make from the forms that you currently have, or Hanover Public School District has something that's already made. I'm sure there's a way that you could access that. If that is the true reason, there are ways to do that without requiring this massive registration program and massive inspection program. The second issue that we talked about the last time this came up 2 or 3 years ago, we asked for cost proposals for this inspection program. We never got one. There are approximately 3,300 rental units in the borough. How are you going to inspect 33 rental properties once a year or even every other year, whatever someone would ultimately decide? You would need a platoon of inspectors. You would need 30, 40, 50 inspectors, full-time. Okay, well, let's avoid that. We won't spend a nickel. We'll outsource that. Okay, well, what happens if you outsource that to companies that actually have the people to do that? They're going to charge exorbitant fees. I will assure you that I am having my generator inspected in my office, which is in the borough, and it's going to cost me $800 for that, and it's going to take about 15 minutes. Why? Because the borough outsourced all that. That's what happens when you outsource inspections. They have to charge a significant amount of money to cover their overhead, all the people in the office that coordinate it, make the calls, schedule it, et cetera. That's what's going to happen. But we have no cost estimates. We have no plan, but we're moving forward with inspections. Third, what are we inspecting? Last time we were here, Chief Klauser stood right here, and I asked him, if there is a 2-story, 3-bedroom apartment in the borough, how many smoke detectors does it have to have? Answer, it depends. Do you need one in each room, one in the hallways, one downstairs? You read the fire code that's incorporated by the IPMC, you can't tell. It's up to the discretion of the inspector. You have 30, 40 inspectors, you're going to get 30 or 40 answers. That is not fair to a landlord who's trying to comply with the ordinance to be subject to fines and imprisonment if the inspectors themselves cannot agree on what the requirement is. Fourth, most importantly, how are these inspections going to be coordinated? Well, that's easy. We'll send a letter to the landlords and say, we're coming out next Friday to inspect. You got 5 properties, we'll do them all Friday, okay? You send that letter to the tenant doesn't respond. You show up at 9 o'clock, knock on the door, nobody answers. What do? The inspector's standing there, the landlord is subject to imprisonment if they do not cooperate with these inspections. You take your key, you turn it, you go to open it, it's locked on the inside. Tenant changed the locks or has a bar across it. They don't want this. They work night shift. They don't want to be woken up to walk someone around to look at their smoke detectors. So what's the landlord supposed to do? Go back and get a court order to break into his own apartment? This is what you need to think about. This is what you're requiring. Okay, well, that's ridiculous, right? That'll never happen. Of course it would. But if it doesn't, suppose that same hypothetical, you knock on the door. This time, there's no answer, but there's no lock, so you turn it and you open it. Are you going to go in there when someone's in there, they're sleeping, they don't know you're there, and you're going to do the inspection? Are you going to walk through there? People have firearms. This is lunacy. You're going to walk in an apartment where someone is sound asleep with a stranger and walk around and startle them? Somebody's liable to get shot. Who's responsible then? I think it's the borough, because they're making the landlord do it under subject of imprisonment. That's what the IPMC says. That's what this ordinance says. That's the problem. The people that are advocating this don't have rental properties and don't realize that although they might think this is a good idea, it's insanity in its practice. Tenants don't want it. Tenants don't want you walking around their apartments. I have a lease that's being used probably thousands of times in central Pennsylvania. There is not one provision in that lease that gives a landlord the right to just go in and randomly inspect or inspect once a year. It doesn't, there's not authority for that. The tenant has the right of quiet, a covenant of quiet enjoyment. They can live there peacefully and not be interrupted. There is no tenant that wants, that I'm aware of, that borough to go in and walk through their apartment once a year and inspect things and make them be home and coordinate that so that can happen. I'm not aware of one tenant that's ever asked for this. You're putting the landlords in an impossible position. Breach the lease or go to jail. That's not what landlords signed up for. The IPMC allows the borough to inspect every single residence of every single person that lives in this borough. That's not what homeowners signed up for when they bought properties in the borough. There are recourses already in place. The borough has the ability to issue an administrative warrant to go in, enter a property where there's a life-threatening or dangerous situation to residents, inspect it, cite it for code violations, and follow up. And they have that ability right now as per the ordinance. The tenants have the right to get free legal counsel if they cannot afford it through Mid-Penn Legal Services, and the State Attorney General has oversight to violations of the Landlord-Tenant Act. If it's something that they decide to take, they will prosecute a landlord. This is a solution looking for a problem. There are remedies in place. Now, are there bad apples? There are bad apples. If people are saying, yeah, there's some landlords out there that have properties that are dangerous to tenants, absolutely. Am I sitting here saying there's not a problem? There is a problem. I'd be the last to say that. But we know who they are, most of them. How do you know? Well, you look at the police log, where the police show up every weekend for arresting people for vandalism, drugs, fighting with each other, et cetera. We know where they are. And I am willing to participate, I'm sure many others are, in a group of people that can help to identify and reach out to tenants that live in those situations and help them. I'm not saying there's not a problem. What I'm saying is there are remedies. Maybe those tenants don't know about the possibility of getting free legal advice. Maybe they don't know about the state AG's office. Maybe they don't know about the borough being able to go in with an administrative warrant already. Maybe the borough's not using that. Maybe it is. I don't know. But that's something it's a discussion that I think you need to have before we get to this point. The IPMC is extreme. It's divisive. I suggest that we repeal it and move on. And I would like to have a conversation. If anybody has questions about anything that I've said, I'd certainly be willing to talk with them if they would like to do that at this time. And if not, I would simply ask that you remove the rental unit inspection ordinance from the agenda for next week and schedule a meeting and invite people who, like myself, who are willing to sit down in a committee context and come up with ways to reach out to tenants that are in bad situations within the context of the existing ordinance. I'd be willing to do that. I'm sure there are other landlords that are willing to do it. I believe that there are probably attorneys from Mid-Penn Legal Services that'd be willing to do it. Thank you.
I have
Yes.
one question. Would you be in agreement to have inspections done after a tenant would move out and before a new one would move in?
No, I think it's the exact same problem. You are walking people through for no reason. Why? The first question I have for anyone that's proposing that is why? Has a tenant said to you that there's a problem? Why are we doing that? The chief said that those inspections would not have saved one life when he was here. It wouldn't have prevented one fire. So why are we incurring these significant costs? I got the same problem in your hypothetical. Okay, the tenant moves out. People say, well, we'll do an inspection. I'll be there between 9 and 12, literally for 3 hours. What are you going to do? Wait around for 3 hours? If you miss them, you got a massive burden on a landlord. There's no reason for it. I think the burden should be on the borough to say, here's the problem. I haven't heard anyone say what the problem is, how these inspections are going to cure the problem.
Well, no, the only reason that I asked for that, Attorney Becker, is because there are issues in homes that are being rented, but before they're rented, the problems that exist, such as non-workable fire alarms or leaks, or those things to me are important that are not passed on to a new tenant. And so I'm saying if the tenants are gone before you rent your apartment, I don't understand your objection to wanting to make sure that everything is in workable order
Okay,
according to,
I'd like to suggest that Attorney Becker said he would be happy to participate in it, like a working group for that we take these questions to that working group, because I'm sure there's a lot of potential
well,
questions that we
there
could work on.
is, Scott, but I think there are a lot
Is-
of people here that would address, and maybe
I'd like
if
to
you
address
can
that.
just, I'm just
Okay.
looking at it that there's not a visible tenant in the building. So
I'd
you
like to
have the
address that.
opportunity
Sure.
to allow the inspector to come in and check for those things that might normally proceed to cause, that were left go because because the tenant does have the right to their own, that becomes theirs for the month. They rent it,
You're
correct?
talking about a massive cost for a program that is not necessary. Do you have a cost estimate for this? How many inspectors would you have to hire to go in if there's a turnover of half of the borough rental properties every year? 1,600 inspections. You would need a platoon of people to do that.
You're assuming every time somebody is a turnover, you're inspecting it. That's
I'm
not
wondering-
what the ordinance says.
I'm not
It's
sure
on an
why we're
annual-
even
it's on a
having this-
biannual basis.
I'm not sure
on
why
it.
we're even having this conversation. Is there
So,
one?
so,
can-
Mr. Becker, does Gettysburg have a permit and inspection system?
It does. It absolutely
Penn
is a.
Township
Well,
have
can
an
I finish,
inspection and-
Councilwoman Rupp, can I finish answering his question? You said I shouldn't interrupt him, and I agree with you, but go ahead. Gettysburg has an inspection
Does Penn
ordinance.
Township?
Penn Township does what
City
as
of
well.
York.
And let me explain to you why they're colossal failures. And if you're at all familiar with either of those programs, you'll understand why. Penn Township has a significantly smaller group of rental properties in the township.
But Gettysburg has a
And,
much larger.
I'm sorry, if we're going to have a dialogue, I would like to be able to finish, Mr. Hertzberg. I know you're advocating this, and it's shocking why, but I'm trying to
Well, it's
understand.
shocking why you're against it, so.
If you'll stop interrupting me, I can explain. If you look at Penn Township's ordinance, do you know how many rental properties they have? Do you know how many people haven't registered? What % of the people in Penn Township have registered their rental properties? Do you have any idea what that number is?
Tell me, you're the one speaking.
Well, I'm just saying, I can give you the exact number. If you're going to continue to advocate this, it's a significantly less number than 40, 50%. It's a small number, the people that actually participate in the program legally.
And ours is even smaller, legally.
I'm not sure you're not understanding what I'm saying. Penn Township already has an inspection ordinance. It doesn't work because people don't register their properties.
That's our
I would
problem.
say it's probably 40 or 50%, but I don't know the exact number, but I can have that for you if this conversation is going to continue. But the reason I'm suggesting that it doesn't work is because the bad landlords don't cooperate. If you look at what happened in Penn Township, there was a fire where someone was in a rental property, where someone died. They hadn't registered in that property. I think you probably know which one I'm talking about if you're familiar with what's going on. Gettysburg has the same problem. A very small number of people actually participate in registering their residential rental properties. So I'm here because you're advocating the IPMC to inspect the property of every single person in this room. That's the first reason I'm here. And I think that needs to be repealed. ASAP is my request. But if you're looking just at the residential rental properties, the examples you gave were colossal failures from a government standpoint. I think it's probably less than half of the people are registering. I can get those exact numbers. And in the one example where there was a death in a residential rental unit in Penn Township, that property was not inspected. And I can give you that address. I can also tell you what everybody else seemed to think what caused that fire, but that might be something we have to talk privately. But it certainly would not have been avoided with an inspection, even if there was a registration. Any other questions?
One other question. You said that under the IPMC, adoption, we can adopt portions of it. We don't necessarily have to go with all of it.
Right.
And I thoroughly listened to your objections, and I see your point of view, and I have to agree with you in part. However, because the apartments have gone to such extent in this area of being run down, and that those that are renting don't report things unless they move out. And we want to make it safe for the people that do own these places, and I don't want to see them legally get into trouble. But the thing is, maybe we have to eliminate jail and just issue on fines. I mean, there's so many ways of looking at this, Mr. Becker. I would be happy to work with you on
Sure.
this.
I'd be glad
But the
to.
fact remains that we have to improve the conditions in Hanover. We are over 50% rentals. We have a terrific problem in this area. And where the property tends to decline, it then devaluates the homes that are privately owned and even landlords who take care of the rentals. So I'm just pointing out some issues. Yes, do we have to discuss it more? I would say yes, so.
I think that would be a conversation I would like to participate in, but I think there are remedies right now to address those conditions that are dangerous to tenants and residents. There are ways to get tenants help to escrow their rents if landlords are not doing what they're supposed to do. I'm not sure that people have fully explored those options. I'm not sure if council even is aware of all the different options, but those are things that tenants can do right now. There are ways that the borough can look at this right now and use their administrative warrant authority to go in and address these situations without this huge program that would be inordinately difficult to implement. And it's what I'm trying to explain to Mr. Hertzberg is that it doesn't work. In the other communities that you're pointing to and saying, hey, what about Gettysburg? What about Penn Township? It doesn't work there. The bad apples don't register. And I can see if I can get
Is
somebody to
this
come.
documented that it doesn't work? I mean.
I'm saying it doesn't work, but it's documented that only a probably 40, 50%, maybe 60%, I don't know only maybe a little more than half register.
I guess the penalty for not registering is not high enough then.
Well, you know, maybe.
Maybe there's a bit.
Enforced.
Okay,
Well,
to
All right,
this-
I'd like to, I don't want to cut this short, but,
well,
we
I'd
have-
like to have that conversation with Mr. Hertzberg.
absolutely, I think
and
it belongs in a
I'll
forum
step
of its
aside.
own.
Yep.
Mr. Becker, I thank you for
Thank you for your
participating. I'd like to call the next public comment up, please.
My name is Doris Peterman. I'm at 189 Primrose Lane, Hanover, PA. Is the secretary for the Finance Committee here tonight?
I'm the borough secretary.
Right
You're the-
here.
Okay. I have a question. The money that's been collected here the last couple of years for stormwater management, do you have the amount of how much has been collected?
I don't, it's not my responsibility to keep track of that. That would be either our finance director or our administrator.
Okay, well, with the money being collected, did they actually have a plan of where this money was going to be going? Did they have a plan?
I'm not involved in stormwater. I'm the borough secretary.
Yeah, Mrs. Peterman, I don't know that, you know, as we discussed that this is, I think this is a good forum to register your concerns
Okay.
and complaint. The necessary people are not here to answer all the nuts and bolts of the
Okay.
question. Sadly, there was a meeting on Thursday
I
of
know,
the
see, and I
Stormwater
was going
Authority.
to attend that meeting, but I was told that that meeting was canceled, or I would have been there.
That's, and
I
that's,
apologize.
that's okay.
because I
We got our calendars
apologize.
crossed there, but
Okay,
I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, for you to read out your complaints into the public record,
okay,
and present your petition or your supporters list, and then we will document that in the minutes for the meeting,
okay,
and ensure that the stormwater, I think it's called the authority, is that correct, Amy? All right. That they are addressing yours and the other comments and concerns that are here about stormwater.
all right. So, yes, I did bring a petition tonight. I've got all the neighbors on Primrose Lane that their backyards run to the creek. And I have a few people on the opposite side of the creek that has lost, I mean, within the 25 years of us living there, we have seen every year where our land keeps washing away from all the stormwater coming down. And basically, the calls seems to be coming from large drain pipes, which are coming from streets way up above us. We're way down at the very north end of Primrose, and all this water from up around the hospital, all these storm drains are coming down, and so these large drain pipes bring a lot of water into the creek. And when they get overflowed, when we have heavy storms, I mean, this past summer, there were several different times that we had 4 or 5 inches of water in our rain gauge. So when we see that there's a lot of water accumulating, we know what's going to happen. So it's not only the drains, but we also have, there's natural underground springs all over the whole area. Those are all coming into the spring. Some pumps, we have people all over the Clearview area. They have some pumps that, when they get filled, they empty out onto the street. We have swimming pools. A lot of people on the weekends, when the pools are too much water, they'll empty those on the weekend when they know the borough is not around. So, there's just a lot of things that's coming into it, and we're just hoping that the stormwater management can finally do something for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I have your notes and your your petition signers. Thank you very much. Okay, Dory, can I give that to you? Thank you, Mrs. Peterman. Who else do we have for public comment here in the audience?
Scott, I have
Yes.
petitions that
Mrs. Funk?
I was given by the Hair Gallery at 71 Boundary Avenue. And she has over 100 signatures here of clients and employees who have problems with no storm drain that should have been put in years ago. So if you will take these, please, and there's also an email from one of her employees as well. I told her I would hand this over
Okay.
and put it
and
in
then
good
The
stead.
specific locations are denoted in here
Yes,
where the
everything
problems
is
are?
there.
Okay. Thank you very much, and
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Sylvia, if you're on the,
Absolutely.
do we have any others? Any other commentary, please? Please come forward, state your name and address.
My name's Barry Brashears. I live at 700 Mall Avenue, and I'm here for the same reason that Art Becker spoke. I have something that I'd like to bring up. I don't know your name,
My name is Darlene.
Darlene. One of the things that you said was about inspectors coming in when, after the tenant leaves. The thing that I've always noticed is one of the most difficult things, let's say that we had an inspector come in and he inspected our property, and that property was found to be 100% great. Everything was in working order, everything was well cared for. But all of a sudden, your tenant moves in and they don't like the noise if they lit a match and their smoke detector goes off. So they disable it. There is absolutely no way that a landlord would know that they disabled that smoke detector after an inspection was done. And I think that you brought that subject up. You said, what about when somebody moves out, then you would have an inspector go in.
Correct.
If everything was perfect and up to code, the day that inspector left and a new tenant moved in, he could disable those smoke detectors. And I also.
Well, who would disable it? You said
The
the tenant
The
would.
tenant would.
Well, that would, all right, if it was in workable order before he moved, such a tenant moved in,
Yes.
then it would be so noted by the inspector, and anything that would happen with the new tenant, part of that responsibility would fall back on the new tenant if they've done something. I don't understand the
Yeah,
problem.
what I'm saying here is if you have an inspector come in, that inspector leaves and a new tenant comes in. That new
Correct.
tenant disables that smoke detector and continually lives there for 5 years. I don't understand where you're saying the inspection would be beneficial.
Well, it even clears you, I think, because as a landlord, in permitting the inspection for the unit, and it comes to the point of where the code enforcement or whoever inspects says, this apartment is fine. It lets you basically off the hook, even though you rent to a tenant who is going to disable that alarm or that fire apparatus. It happens after you rented it, and that tenant has the right to say, you can't come on my property because they've rented it for 30 days. It's theirs, correct? And you wouldn't interfere with their rights as a landlord, is that correct?
Yes,
So it would all fall after the inspection, and since you cannot enter the property except if the tenants allow you for, say, plumbing or whatever it was,
yes.
you are cleared up to that point. So then the code enforcement officer, if something like that would happen, the question would come back, okay, this whole thing was cleared for Mr. So-and-so who rents this building. It was fine. So what took place afterwards has to fall back into who was living in that apartment at the
Right.
time. And you can't be held, I wouldn't hold you responsible for something that happens due to the tenant, okay? So I'm thinking that it helps you in a sense.
How does it help the well-being of the tenant that moved in that
Well, you can't
disabled
be
the smoke
responsible for
detector?
everyone, and,
That's what you're basically saying.
no,
though.
I'm not.
You're saying that you think these inspections are going to be beneficial. Let me ask you another question. Any landlord, you know what I'm saying, when he starts to pay these fees and these fees come out, let's say it's a $75 fee. Then the next year, it's an $85 fee to do this inspection. What happens is, let's say that you had an elderly tenant, and then that tenant moved out, and then who do you charge that money to that's, you're being charged for the inspections?
Well, you know, I don't think you landlords have a problem with that. I think, I really don't. That is, no, you don't,
This is
you don't
definitely-
come, you add.
Okay, all right, let's not get into a debate
right.
about who has all the
What-
money.
Let me
Okay.
just say, we know these inspections haven't worked. I mean, they haven't worked in Penn Township. This is just basically added on cost to the landlord.
But I don't have any, I don't
Mrs.
have
Funk,
anything.
this is a public
Okay,
comment,
just a
not
moment.
public
Yes, I
debate.
know, but he's directing it at me.
Well, you were the
What
one,
I'm saying is, give me evidence from Penn Township, give me evidence from Gettysburg, bring this proof to me,
Well,
so
I
that
think-
I have it in front of me and I can gauge what you're telling me. And I don't mean to insult landlords here, but I am telling you that when people pay their rent, they're covering the tax on that building also. So they have a say in the education of their children. But it all boils down to, I don't know, you tell me, how many landlords that are in for investments, okay, do not pass that over to their tenants? Are you taking it out of your pockets free will? I mean, I've got to
Well-
ask you this.
I'm trying to figure out where you're coming up with this major benefit for doing these inspections when we've never had
It
this.
clears you after the former tenant moves out. It clears you. You have an inspector come in and he will look at you and
Okay.
say, you're fine. You've done,
Yeah.
the apartment's fine.
I think,
And then you rent it, and it comes out that the apartment was all right. It wasn't you who created the mess. It is the new tenant.
but I think what I'm saying here is we need to look at the evidence of other townships that did this.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely. I said, bring it forward. Let me see the paperwork. Let me see
Well, I think-
exactly what you're
I
stating.
think that's what we need to do here. and
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not
You're
for,
okay with
you know.
this?
Take it off the agenda and let's go to committee.
I think so too.
Absolutely. Well, then
Okay.
you're not wanting to look at the evidence. You're wanting to vote on it.
We do not have a problem. What?
You can always modify an ordinance.
Yeah, we
Oh, so
can,
you wanna
and
vote
he's
on it
right, we
first.
can always modify. You will help us to improve. And that's why we're extending this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you
Scott.
very much. Next, please.
Good evening, Attorney Jen Zerfing, 529 Carlisle Street. I just wanted to clarify one thing. I appreciate the discussion. That's refreshing to be able to come here and have discussion, and I think it's a great idea to continue the discussion and kind of flesh this out a little bit more. But I just wanted to clear up what Mrs. Funk, you were discussing with the other gentleman about that it kind of lets the landlord off the hook. But I read carefully through the proposed ordinance, and it clearly says that the landlord is responsible for the conduct
Yes,
of the tenant. So,
right. And now we're listening to you and we're saying, you're putting things on the table. I'm not closing anything off as one council member. I'm saying, bring it to me. Feed me the information I need to make it better for everyone, including the tenant and the landlord. And if there are corrections, we will so modify, okay? I don't think there's anyone here that does not want it for the betterment of all people. I particularly want it for all people.
yeah, it sounds like that you have a desire to get more facts. I'd certainly like to help
Yes.
get those facts and so that you can find something that's going to work for everybody.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment, please? State your name and address.
Hello, my name's Patrick Hagerman. I live at 207 Eichelberger Street, and I just want to be put on record that I agree with everything that Art and everyone else has said. And I would wonder how many complaints from tenants there are in a month's time that their places are unfit to live. Like Art said, I know there's definitely issues at places, but shouldn't we zone in on the people whose places are unfit to live in, rather than going after every property that are fit to be lived in? I know when my properties are available for someone to move into, they're in tip-top condition. Maybe 3 years later, when they move out, they aren't. But the day they move in, they're in the best condition of any. And why should I pay for an inspection that I know I've got everything in order?
Don't you have a deposit on, that they put a deposit down
I
for
do.
damage?
Yes.
Yes. Maybe you want to consider putting in an inspection fee after they leave that is in with deposit.
What's the cost of that?
I have no idea at this time. That's why I said,
Have you ever tried to get-
I'm not
Okay.
arguing with you.
You-
Bring to the table
It's
these
hard to get
things.
money out of somebody after they've already moved out of your property.
No, if they put the deposit fee down, include a little portion of that money for the inspection fee.
All right, well, like Mr. Becker said, I hope that we could, rather than you have a vote on this, that we could have,
Excuse me?
rather than having a vote on this, that we could have additional conversations.
Absolutely.
I can fill this room with landlords and tenants that are all opposed to it. So, that's all I've
Oh,
got.
are your tenants are
Thank you.
opposed to it too?
Okay.
Can I come inspect your house?
What's this?
Can I come inspect your house?
Absolutely, you can. I don't have a problem.
I'll be over tomorrow.
Any other, okay, all right, let's keep this civil. Any other public comment from the people that are here, please?
Yeah, Glenn Bang. I live at 1281 Honda Road, Hanover, but that's in Adams County.
What was the address, Glenn? I'm sorry.
1281
Thank you.
Honda. And my wife and I have rental units in Hanover Borough, and I'm just here to voice my opinion on the IPMC ordinance. And I think Attorney Becker did an excellent job on explaining it, and I respect your time. I won't take a lot of time, but I support what he says. And I just think if you start these inspections, you're going to get a reputation as far as Borough Council that you don't want. And I'm here to kind of, we need to discuss this more. I do annual inspections myself on my rental properties. To be honest with you, I'll be straightforward, I don't need anybody inspecting my properties. But maybe what we have to do, and I know you're between a rock and a hard place because you got good tenants, you got good landlords, you got the other end of the spectrum also. Maybe you need to train some landlords on how to be a landlord. So I just think you need to table this and give it some more thought and more discussion. And I appreciate having time, and I want you to really think this through before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bang.
Yep.
Any other public comment? Name and address, please.
Philip Redding, 230 Stock Street. I do agree with Attorney Becker. So what am I hearing here? Are you guys just going to go through with this and leave it on the agenda?
Do you think that we're going to put it on the agenda just like that, or do you think that we're reaching, no, Philip, you look like your mama.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
It is
I wanna
on
take it
the
off.
agenda,
Are you gonna
but
take it
I'm
off?
glad that you're here, because there are things that we do have to discuss. And if you're pointing out irregularities, we owe it to all of our people to attack the issue and look at it. So, let me know what you think, Philip. I know you run you're highly recommended, okay? So I don't have a problem. But bring to our attention what you are concerned about tonight.
I'm concerned that you have something on the agenda that the people do not want on the agenda. Are you going to take it off?
Now, wait, what people, Philip? What, okay, we're talking landlords.
All these people that have said nothing about, when they came up here, were they saying that you were for this? None, zero.
What?
Nobody said they want this from the people. Who wants it? You guys want it. These people don't want it. I represent these people,
The landlords.
landlords and
But
tenants.
if you're doing
the
the right
public.
thing, Philip.
You guys work for us.
Oh, we do, absolutely, you're right.
So I want it off the agenda. We want it off the agenda. Are you going to take it off the agenda?
I can't promise you that, Philip, because the whole town is involved in this. Everybody's our boss.
Who is responsible for taking it off the agenda? How can we
Well, it
take
would
it
have
off?
to be voted down.
Okay,
Yeah,
can we do that today?
The
I want to
outcome
see
would be the
people
same.
voting today to keep it on or keep it off. You just heard everybody here. I waited till the end, so all the public has said.
Mr. Redding,
No.
the matter is on the agenda for the next meeting, which
not
is
on the
next
agenda.
Tuesday night. It's been advertised for that day.
How can we get it off the agenda?
Where is it?
It's on the
The
agenda.
public.
So
So we're asking for it to be removed. You're agreeing to have a discussion with us, but it's still going to be on the agenda.
the matter will come up
Is that right?
Tuesday night.
Yeah,
A no vote or 6 against and 4 in favor would essentially end the discussion.
Or it can be tabled.
Or, yeah, or could be tabled.
Or,
You don't have to do it up or down vote.
right.
right, it's on, George said it's on the agenda for a week from tonight. This is the workshop meeting.
Week from yesterday.
So this is a workshop. What have you guys done to date as a proactive measure? And I know we've already discussed this back years ago when we got it tabled and we got it shot down. And you guys said, well, I guess we're not going to do it again because we filled the room back then and we're going to fill it again. And back then, you had nothing good to say you were going to, hey, we're going to do this, we're reaching out to the community, we're reaching out to tenants, we're reaching out to landlords. I said it back then, I'll say it again. What proactive measure have you done so far?
Well, the original ordinance that was a couple years ago included commercial. So it was jointly residential commercial. Commercial was removed from it because commercial already gets inspections done.
Right.
This is just residential. So to clarify, that ordinance was a totally different ordinance than it is today. So
Is that the correct?
it is correct. It had commercial in there too. I'm not going to argue with you.
I'm not saying that commercial wasn't in it, but you're saying it's a totally different ordinance than last time? It is absolutely, you're misrepresenting that.
No, it was the commercial and residential. It was split. It was voted down because it had commercial.
We do need to keep this limited to,
I'm asking as a workshop,
It's
you
common.
guys to respond proactively. What have you done?
well, I think that's a good
Yep.
question to be read into the record that deserves
So-
a formal answer
Wanna hear
to. I don't
nothing.
think you're going to get that
So
here
nothing.
this evening. Well,
I'm hearing nothing from the board that you're doing. I work, in factories and trying to get people to change their behaviors for many years, and now that I'm in the real estate, we didn't come in with a heavy-handed and you gotta change or you're gonna get, reprimanded. We try to dangle a carrot in front of our employees. Say, hey, if you act good, we'll give you a carrot, so to speak. Have we tried that for landlords? And I'm talking, you gotta be creative, and we can help you that. I can help. I've got great ideas for that. Okay? We gotta think more proactively. I'd like to be on a list of landlords saying, hey, I'm inspected by the borough. I'm inspected by the fire chief. I had the fire chief in give him some money and donation, and he can come in and inspect my 200-some units. Hey, that'd be great. That's good marketing for me and good for you guys. You guys get that too. I know you're not going to get the bad people, and the bad people are not going to invite the fire department in. I get that. But you know what? The good guys are going to win, the good guys are going to get all the tenants, and the bad guys are going to continue to not be in business. And I said this before, you got to let the market fish this out, okay? If you have a fire, if you have a bad rental unit, even boarding houses, I can't get insured on a boarding house. I don't know if you know that. An insurance company will not insure you anymore. You're going to see less and less boarding houses. Okay?
That's new to me.
The only
Philip.
reason I get insured with my boarding house is because I attach it to an apartment complex. Okay? I do own one boarding house. Two. We gotta work together. We gotta be proactive. And I'm glad to hear that you guys want to have a meeting, but I want to see some action. I want to see it vote no next week.
Okay.
Okay? Does anybody
Ready?
is anybody still thinking that we should say yes next week? Is anybody, who is for this? I don't get it. We're not hearing a for this from the public, for sure. Who is for this?
Philip, listen, you are here, and the majority of you that are here tonight are good landlords.
I get
What
it.
I'm saying is, there is a lot in Hanover that is not being taken, okay, into consequence, and you know this. Am I personally, as one council member, willing to talk with you and to learn more? Yes.
Okay.
I need to hear more, but I will not allow the devaluation and slums to occur in this town if I, as one council member, can prevent it, okay? It's not the good ones. We're not going after the good ones. But it is the ones that are offensive to the community and don't give a
I
damn.
don't disagree with you.
All right.
One final point, I don't want something coming in here and you guys saying it's gonna be $20, it's gonna be $30, and it's gonna be a small amount. That can easily balloon up to what York is and Gettysburg is at $100, $150 a unit. And we'll have no say.
All right, Mr. Reddick, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
I appreciate you attending and participating. Are there any other comments, Mr. Bang? Quick, please.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. Just one item of clarification, Mr. Rowland. I think you said council meeting's a week from tonight. I thought it was Tuesday of next week.
I'm sorry, Tuesday. I forgot about Thanksgiving.
Tuesday, okay.
I apologize.
And the other thing is, I talked to an owner of a building code inspection company today, and he said that Carlisle put this into effect, and he said they were going to go down the path of hiring their own code enforcement officer. He said it's a nightmare. They came to him, and they want as many private parties in doing the inspections as they can get, and he said he can only do so many because he only has so many employees. And, the inspection, you're just at the mercy of the inspector. 10 inspectors are going to inspect it different. So I just need you to think about that.
Mr. Bang.
Thank you.
Maybe check out.
Mr. Bang, thank you.
Darlene,
No,
we're
let
done.
me go
It's not
now,
a-
Mr.
it's
Bang.
not a bite-
Thank
it's not a back and forth
you very
forum.
much tonight, and I think you've given us all food for thought,
Okay.
okay? Thank you.
That's why I came.
appreciate hearing
Yep.
from
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Are we finished with the comment here in the room? Okay, do we have,
Ask for one final thought. I can get freedom from, a right to know request in for Gettysburg and Penn Township to show the significant problem in registration. But I'm not sure I can get it by a week from today. We can give it a shot.
And also the cost of this project.
But the point is, I'm not sure I'm going to have the information you need to make a decision next week. So, and I know you can't vote on it tonight, but I'm going to ask that you next week table this till we can get the information that you are asking for, which I think you should know and consider as part of this discussion, that it didn't work in Penn or Gettysburg.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, anyone online? iPhone or Justine or any of the anonymous people? Would you open the line?
Yeah, if you're joining us via Zoom, you can now unmute yourself if you'd like to address council.
Okay, thank you. We'll consider that complete. Okay, we have the consent agenda, items, item 3A through E.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion to approve. Thank you. Second from Mr. Kress. Any questions? Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening and participating and sharing your feelings. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And we didn't push it.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
On what? On the, I'm
Come on,
sorry.
Andy, get where-
Please pay attention.
On the consent agenda?
Yes,
No,
please.
I'm not opposed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 4, that's been pulled from the agenda?
Sorry, Scott. Yes.
Yes. I just wanted you to know I was paying attention here.
Yeah, I didn't. give
I
you-
got Dory
I
there.
didn't give you a new copy. Item 4.
That's
is now
okay.
That one.
All right, item 4, finance person, there was a fire study that wasn't finished that we were supposed to have for this evening. But so that was pulled.
Right.
Oh,
It's a new
now I get the
agenda.
new one. All
So
right,
the only difference is that's taken off. or
got it. Okay, so I'm back on item 4 for real. Finance personnel and administration. The 2023 budget, the police hires, the early retirement incentive, and the accounting software. Can I have a motion for approval?
Scott, can we take all these 4 separate?
Okay, Jim, you want to come up and present them individually? All right?
Holy shit.
My one question
was
on the
almost too easy.
2023 budget is in there, we identify the borough goals for 2023. I don't think there's been a conversation with the council on agreement on those goals or others that should be added. Once it's advertised, without that, should they not be in there?
I think that's a very good point. There should be objectives and individual and metrics to measure them. I don't know that we're quite to that point, though. I think they may have to be developed as we go forward. I'll leave that to Jim.
Yeah, I mean, the goals I have in here are more like boilerplate type goals. It wasn't specifically from the council, so, just general comments. So we could either develop the goals you want to have in there, or I could just take them out of the document.
I would recommend we probably take them out
I
of the
would-
document
I would agree with that.
and we focus specifically so that it could be advertised or state that the goals for 2023 would be an addendum or an amendment to
Okay.
it.
Okay?
That way it can go forward, but.
I'm sure you're on target with those, but I do think they have to be.
Well, I think
discussed.
there are a few things that are
Should be
missing.
specialized or
Yeah, I think.
more
we should
detailed.
talk about 'em.
I was really trying to make, what we do put out for our budget a little bit more informational
No,
for
and-
the public, and that was
yeah.
the intent, so.
Well, certainly, it was a
But,
good
uh,
intent.
that's
No,
fine.
and
I'll
we've had them
pick
in
that
there
up.
before.
Correct.
It's just we have not had the conversation
Okay.
as a council with the borough manager, of course.
And how do you measure
Or new.
success? Or how do you define and measure success? That's the real question.
I did include the changes that were made since the council had seen the budget. We had discussed changing the millage rate, which was updated. I did add in.
It is .44, correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's a new rate, 6.09 mils. I did add in a provision, subject to council approval, if we were to move forward with the facilities project next year and there needed to be a borrowing, I needed something in the budget as a placeholder. So I did add that in. We had all updates on the compensation for the labor that affected the governmental and proprietary funds. The water fund actually had an update on its 2022 projection, which basically just changed opening cash balance for '23. It's just a timing issue. There's really, nothing has changed. Just shifted the expenses back into '22 that would affect the cash balance. And then also, we did not have the HEDC in the prior presentation. It's minor, but again, just for completeness standpoint, it's in there for this time. If there's no objection to that, the only thing it sounds like I need to change is to remove the goals from the budget document.
Just with a note to be further developed, and then we need,
Yep.
the definition of success and how you measure it.
Right.
That's
Measurement.
probably the most important part.
And a couple, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, we did decide that the Borough Council had to approve those goals, and you would have known that, Jim. So
Right.
thank you very much.
Okay, not a problem.
Please.
Jim, I'm sorry, I have one question about what you said. You had mentioned the HEDC. Did you, is that what you?
Yeah, Hanover Economic Development Corporation its budget was not included in October.
Okay, but that's its budget, not the borough's budget.
I think what he's referring to is money that we give to HEDC.
Right.
Okay, the 30,000 that had been.
Right.
Correct,
Okay.
like we do with Main
Okay.
Street, just accounting for it.
Thank you,
Not that it's in a budget that we're running the HEDC.
thank you.
Okay, all right. You want to go in order? Can I skip down to the software? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions on
No.
so far?
Okay. So we did a review of a new financial system, ERP system. We've been on the
Excuse me.
KVS.
Don't we need a motion to move the proposed budget without the goals to the council agenda?
Oh, okay, sorry.
For
That first.
advertisement?
I'll
Good
make that
point.
motion.
Second.
Barb, second. Tim?
Sorry.
No, good. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Good job, Jim.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, Jim.
It's okay. So we've been on the KVS system since 2006. Definitely an old financial system. I know it's been in the works to look at the new financial system. So we did an evaluation of 3 different applications, the Edmunds, Cassell, and the Springbrook software. The Springbrook is a cloud-based application. It's actually the same owner of KVS. They had bought the KVS application, I think, a number of years ago. They maintained it.
Great-great-grandson.
Yes, it's a very old system, so we're looking to upgrade our system next year. The Springbrook application, again, it's cloud-based. It's got, workflow within it, superior electronic billing capability. We can enhance really the way we deliver our invoices and ability for our customers to pay their invoices more online. So it also introduces an HR function, which we don't have within our system today. The implementation is much shorter than the other companies that we looked at, has the lowest cost of acquisition as well, too. So we think overall it's a well-rounded.
And we don't need any on-site hardware if it's cloud-based.
It's cloud-based, correct. So the need for maintaining those servers would become unnecessary, other than for any historical information we don't convert, we still would have access to KVS for any type of historical reference purposes. But we will convert.
Would the council like to see any sort of a detailed or just a working group of what Jim's proposing in terms of the new ERP system?
I think we need to
I
trust
would.
Jim.
I
think we need to trust Jim.
You don't?
No, I think my only thing is to be sure that the security is there, because I know some companies, that they may be operating with the software in the cloud or online, but the data is stored in a back firewall situation of the actual financial data, so it can't be hacked or dealt with. I just want to make sure that there's that security there with the data, and I'm assuming it's there, and you guys got that locked down, but.
We can, and in fact, I can go back to Springbrook and have them provide us their security information.
Okay.
I mean, everyone can be hacked, but.
Right,
it
right,
is,
right.
you know,
Can that information
good
then be
teenager can
given
get you
to
in.
council?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, it's, like, I'm not sure what the terminology, like the ISO 9000 or whatever it happens to be, but there's a provision for their level of security, and it's something that they've been in the cloud for a number of years, so I think they secure the software very, very good. So, but I'll get that particular information. I'll have it for council for next week.
Thank you.
Does the cost of this software include training modules for everybody? How's that work? Are they going to train, or are they going to give you?
Oh, no,
modules?
it's completely turnkey as far as the training, the transition of our historical information. The good thing is that the Springbrook knows our business.
Okay.
Because they've been, supporting us since 2006
Yeah, absolutely.
with existing, so they know our business. And so it's the training and documentation, the transition will be a phased approach so that it's not like a big bang approach. So they'll take the different modules, things will be run parallel, we'll have plenty of user acceptance testing, and to ensure that we have a good product when we go
It
live.
is,
Good.
it's very
Sounds
critical,
good.
though, that we have a strong user group that's going to be able to pull that into the organization, and we're not pushing it down from the top, because that's.
And I like
having-
that you're going to have a transition plan instead of just dumping it. That makes people.
Oh,
understand.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and we, as Scott had mentioned, we really want to, you count the number of users today on your just two hands. We really wanted to expand this so that we have
Oh, yeah.
a lot more participation, even down to the individual that it's only involved with the system for their timesheet submission. They're going to be doing it through the employee self-service. It's going to be a lot more.
We're coming out of the
hands-on.
dark ages then. We are coming out of the dark ages. Good.
Barb, I think we only have 5 to 7 users today.
Yeah, it's less than 10, just so, out of this
Yeah, I mean,
Stone Age back into, finally into
It
the
is like
21st century, so
Yeah.
we're excited about it.
Thank you, Jim, for bringing this to us. Thank you. Jeez.
But I've included the
Want to make the motion?
contract, I
You want
think,
to make the motion, or you want me to?
Yeah, well,
for the
Okay, go ahead.
council as well, too.
Make a
go ahead,
motion?
Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
I make a motion to move this to the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Jim, thank you very much. Motion carries.
Good evening.
Masked man.
Yes. So we're requesting that the council direct civil service to provide a certified hiring list. This is the next step in the process. These candidates would have been vetted through the background process and would be in line for the civil service rules, the conditional offers for employment. Again, we were looking to hire 3.
How many are we looking at? I forget.
3.
Great, right.
That brings us to 27.
25.
25, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. Make a motion to approve.
Motion? Second? Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Brings us to number 5 on the correct agenda, governance and policy.
No, not yet. I have one more.
Oh,
under
one more,
4.
sorry.
One more.
Oh, early retirement, sorry.
So we,
Going out of order.
as you remember, you approved a early retirement program for employees who had been with the borough for over 30 years and were eligible for retirement under the employee pension plan, which is pretty much everybody except police and fire. Of the 22 that were eligible for the program, we had 5 who applied and we're recommending approval for. So these employees have, as you saw in the memo, 35-plus years of service, each of them. And so we commend them for their service, and in exchange, we are offering this program. So I'd like you to approve this list of 5 employees for the early retirement program.
Have we come to the deadline now for?
Yes.
Other, okay.
Yep.
So we need a motion to
So
approve.
motion.
Second. Thank you. And a
Yes.
second?
Second, Brian.
Barb?
Brian.
Brian? Thank you. Any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much, Amy.
So the next one is the review on legal affairs and employment of legal counsel. This is the policy that was adopted by council in January of 2021. It went before governance for the opportunity for revisions. Governance sent it back to workshop requesting no revisions to the policy. So it's really just in front of you for review or comment, but this is the policy that we're currently working under, or our solicitor currently works under for the council.
And your report was very good, Tim. Thank you. It was very, very good. Thanks.
I make a motion.
Second.
Discussion?
I second.
No, if there's any discussion. Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Question.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
The next one?
Capitalization?
This one you
Yep,
need.
the asset
Gonna write everything in
capitalization
capitals
process-
this year?
policy. Yes. So,
And a bold font.
with Jim coming here this year and having a fresh eyes on borough processes, he's trying to find where we have inconsistencies and where those, when he identifies those inconsistencies, work to correct that. So this is just one of the things that he's found and was able to develop a policy and procedure for. Prior to this policy, for some reason, just the water department was capitalizing assets of $750. Anything over $750 was being capitalized as an asset. Everything,
paperwork
every
nightmare.
other department of the borough, it was $5,000. So this makes it $5,000 for
So anything
for
less
all
than
departments.
5,000 will expense in that fiscal period?
Yes, over
Perfect.
$5,000 is a capital asset. So this went to governance for review, and then is brought to you.
Jim, is there any
Okay.
downside to this?
No, no, it's actually, it'll make it a little bit easier for us to manage our fixed assets.
Could we have, or have we had a capital asset inventory ever?
No, but it's on my to-do list to actually do an inventory of the
They
fixed
have
assets.
goals of
And-
2023.
Yeah, well, 2023, yeah.
23, 24, 25?
No, 23.
Okay.
The fixed assets and our inventory that we do install and to capitalize eventually for infrastructure, meters, et
As in
cetera.
component inventory?
Correct.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve.
thank you. Second. Who was the second?
Tim.
Tim? Or Chuck?
Wait, Tim can have it. Tim can.
Tim's got
Let him be on the
Tim's.
record.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much, Jim. Okay, Department of Planning and Engineering. I believe that's Eric.
It is.
Come on down.
You've been quiet tonight.
All right, the first item under planning and engineering is the market house study. So when we did the capital expenditures plan, we looked at our vertical construction, we called it. We've really been focused on municipal building, public safety, public works, water resources, all those things. One of the things that we've kind of glossed over, but was certainly part of that original study, was that your market house is in need of a similar effort. It's in need of some looking at it, understanding what works well with it, what doesn't work well, what's structurally good, what's not structurally good. And so understanding that, we went out to two different companies to get proposals. And knowing that the council sort of has a limited appetite for studies and things like that, we went out to the philanthropic world, and we were able to secure grants to fully fund a market house study. So there is zero taxpayer dollars going into this. And it's no small amount. I mean, it's $43,000 worth of study, so it's not like we just got $100. So we have two companies, Downstream Strategies and Buchar Horn. You remember Buchar Horn, they're helping us with all of our other buildings. They have some experience in the marketplace arena. They've been working with the city of York on a couple of theirs. That's what appealed to us. Plus, they also kind of understand what we're looking for, having worked with us on the other projects. So the ask for you tonight is simply, we have to execute contracts all the same. Those are still contracts with the borough, with council. So I need your approval to ultimately move a market house study forward, being funded through the Wareheim Foundation and YCEA.
So there's,
So moved.
right, there's
Second.
no downside to the borough financially, okay?
No.
So we had Chris was the motion and Tim was the second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay?
The
One-
second
you're on a roll.
item deals with parking promotion, and certainly I know council has been bombarded with comments and feedback and things, and we understand that. So one of the things, obviously, is we're going to be talking about this in the short term. You know, the next couple months are going to be busy with collecting that public feedback, kind of refining it into actionable items, and then trying to look at our parking program and see where we need to go with that. However, as we do that, one of the things that came to the forefront in talking with Main Street Hanover was we have an opportunity to use Forever Media to help us get some of our messaging out about the changes in parking, help to educate the people in the borough, what the changes are, where they're occurring, and things like that. So a proposal was put forth from Forever Media. Basically what it is, it's a campaign that runs for about 6 weeks, gets you about 96 commercials for a total of $2,976. So
Now,
relatively.
these 96 commercials, they're all radio, verbal on the
Correct.
radio?
This is all through radio platform.
98.5 and 107.7.
Okay, what's that amount?
$2,976.
$3,000.
So less than $3,000.
Can we have, I know Justine was at the meeting, would you object to her adding anything to that?
Absolutely.
Justine, would you mind chiming in on that online, please? I think we've unleashed you.
Oh, there we go. Sorry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I really have nothing to add. I think this is a great idea. I would support this, and I think it is a great way to help to spread the word about the changes in the parking. So I provide my support to what Eric and Amy are sharing with you all.
Thank
Do
you.
we have any way or metric to figure out how effective it is? Other than less complaints or more,
More quarters.
How do we, how do we, I agree, the media, I mean, you can only put it on the website so much, you can only put it in newsletters so much, but is there any way for us to gauge?
I mean, certainly I would believe the radio would tell you that in general with the industry, they can probably put some metrics to it. If I look at it through a much smaller lens, it's probably very hard for the borough to see a specific metric to say, okay, well, there's 6 less people banging on the meter because now they understand that it's changed over. I don't, not having a count of all of those things that are occurring,
Broken meter glass.
it's hard to put it together. I think this falls into that category of, basically some is better than none. And again, this is really one step of what I would view to be multiple things. When we start to look at other changes to the system, that obligation is going to fall to us to push those other changes out as well. Whether that comes through Forever Media, whether that comes through social or other things, that's yet to be determined. But unfortunately, no, I don't think there's a specific metric where I'm going to see a certain percentage. Maybe, we could certainly set a baseline and watch the passport parking to see, I get numbers from there. I could look at that and see if we saw a spike up that would say, oh, okay, people are realizing there is an online
Part
platform.
of this media, are we gonna be pushing the use of passport more than putting quarters in a machine? Try to target it in a way to say, hey.
The messaging's in your package.
There's a script in there.
But remember now,
I did a quick glance at it, but.
with passport, we get the same amount of money whether it's with passport or with quarters.
Except that you have a lot less frustration and parking meters beat up.
Well, correct.
Because of them being so antiquated, you can't get them to do what you need them to do. The fact is, the lifespan of those meters are done.
Change is hard.
Well, we got
Just
what
takes
we
a
got.
long
You gotta make use with what we
Takes
have.
time.
I understand, but they're pretty much lifespan are done. You can't
Okay,
get
but-
it to work.
All right.
Takes time.
So Eric, moving forward on the planning of the steps moving forward from the demand study and stuff, what's the actionable approach? How's that gonna be developed?
So, again, what we're going to be doing is continuing to collect the public feedback that's coming in. I think what we need to start doing is find a way to sift through that and pull out of that what is actionable items and what of that is emotion-based, because there will certainly be things in there that we're not really able to do anything with, but there will be other things that we can say, oh, that's a good idea, that's a good approach, let's put that on the whiteboard and that be something that we talk about. I think all of that conversation is probably most relevant to start where a lot of this parking conversation started, which was at the former was the EDC, I guess now it's your enhancement committee. That's who led the charge with previous parking studies. I think that's probably the appropriate place to work through all of that so that council then can get recommendations from that committee.
How are we gonna go around the rate issue? and the rate question.
we need to talk
Or are
about
we
the
not
rate
going to
issue.
touch that?
I think we have a couple issues. I think we're going back to that committee. I think I've had consistency in issues I've gotten from people. You may have
Ton,
gotten something
a
else.
ton.
And I've said to people, I bring them forward. So I think that needs to come back. I think your idea is a great idea. It needs to go back to that committee. So we can share, we can say, we shared our stuff. Because I do want to share it. The people have complained to me.
Agreed.
Yeah, and change is hard for people. It really is hard, but I think we have to talk about it, maybe make a few changes, but I think we have to talk about
And
it.
we need to be
Barb,
very
what
Talk about the
committee are you referring
enhancement. So go back to the committee.
We need to be very cautious. We're
HEDC?
not pushing people
No,
away from downtown.
enhancement. No, we don't want to do that.
Very cautious.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's the last thing we want to do.
So again, there is a much larger assignment in front of Borough. At this point in time, the ask is simply to approve a contract to begin getting some media out about the changes. It does nothing else than solidify the idea that there are changes occurring already, and it probably helps us as a spring platform that there are more changes going to be coming.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Second, any,
Well, I have a
Discussion?
discussion,
go ahead.
just because I didn't read what the information was, but that would be in the commercial. But I guess to me, until we actually know what the changes are, why are we spending money advertising something if we're only going to possibly be making changes?
The only things that are in the commercial is that the app is available for people who don't have change, so that you have the option to use the app. It discusses the free parking during the holiday season, and then directs people to the borough website to learn more about our parking modernization program. And so that is the script as of right now. With this contract, though, when this contract is over, we can update it with whatever changes we make from there.
Because I wrote a letter suggesting a compromise of the old and new technology, because we do have to recognize we have an elderly population. Not everybody has a cell phone, believe it or not. And some of those people, even if they do, they still have like a flip phone. They don't have apps on their phone. So I feel it's only fair to keep the quarter system still going. I propose to do 25 cents per 15 minutes, no matter what meter you're at, because I know we talked about having some red-headed meters. But then to me, as you're putting those around sporadically, and if I'm coming downtown, now I have to know there's red-headed meters, I have to know where one is, and I have to hope that it's available. So I feel like if you just
I think
make.
with what you're proposing should just be sent to the committee, and it'll be put in as part of the conversation.
Because I think my people have complained to me about some of the same concerns. So
Yes.
all those concerns we brought up at our
Way
committee.
too complicated.
Yeah, I think we need compromise, and I think we need simplification.
And we need to address it soon.
And we need to try to make our parking easier for people
But I hope it's
downtown,
free
not
on holidays, not
one
either.
more thing for them to complain about with the parking.
And I personally have gotten a lot of comments, and they're coming from more of the older people, okay? And they are finding this upsetting, okay? So I think I'm in agreement with the mayor. And also, at this time, the question was asked me, someone said they got a $37 fine, and are we finding now, are we pulling in information that you're getting to look over all of the discrepancies that people feel, you've just put this in, you haven't given them fair warning? Are you continuing to find when people don't have the proper information? In other words, they pull up, they don't understand. I got the, people were feeding me their disquiet on the fact that they didn't know it took 5 quarters,
That's been a big problem.
And, yeah, I mean, I really got a lot of this, okay?
But there is
And
a
then-
sticker on there
and
that
then-
says.
right,
People
and then-
aren't reading.
Well, they aren't, but then the reading, one person said they had such a difficult time trying to read the meter. They put their glasses on, still trying to decipher, okay? So I'm only passing through what
And I agree.
what's
I'm
come
going to
to
simply
me.
suggest these are all perfect things that should be pushed to that committee so that we can have that conversation. As it's on the agenda now, there really isn't, we're not set up for that. So we really want to gather all that, capture that, and get that into the committee so that we can start having
That
those
would be the
conversations,
Economic
what's
Development
needed.
Committee.
You're calling it enhancement.
Oh,
I believe it's the
enhancement.
new
Thanks to
term.
Gary.
Okay,
Thanks to Gary.
Thanks to Gary.
okay, so do
Yes,
we
thanks to
have do we have a motion for this?
So motion.
Oh, we did have a motion.
Did we?
We did.
Okay, we had,
I think I made the motion, somebody else seconded it.
Dr. Rupp
No, that was Tim.
and Tim was the second?
I think somebody did.
Okay, so that was the discussion?
That was the
We're
discussion
good? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Motion carries. Brings us to the Planning Commission.
So Peachtree Land Development Plan is the first one that's on your agenda here as 7A. Basically, what you had is, I don't know if I'm familiar you are with it, but the municipality's planning code we operate with sets a very defined amount of time that we have in which to take in a plan, have conversations about it, and then take deliberate action on it. What you have in front of you now is a plan that, as of Planning Commission meeting, was not yet adjusted to where it needed to be in order for any consideration of approval. And so at that time, Planning Commission was basically sort of painted into a corner. They had to recommend that it would be rejected, and so they did so. In the meantime, now you have the applicant providing you additional time. So he's provided a letter and said, look, I understand there's zoning, I understand there's issues. I'm granting the borough. And that's how this works is we don't ask them for time. The way the MPC is, they grant us time. And so you have an instance here where now, after the Planning Commission, we've got someone saying, okay, I'm giving you an additional 90 days as part of the consideration. So the solicitor certainly can bring you up to speed on more of it, but basically, you operate under, you have an obligation to act in good faith towards planning developments and things like that. So my suggestion would be, you got a bunch of work ahead of us. We have a zoning hearing that we're only, I don't know, halfway through, hopefully. So that's still a big question mark. I still have a whole technical review letter that needs reviewed. It needs to be revised. So, I would advocate, accept the timeline and let's have the conversations, let's move it through, the way that the law tells us to move it through, and then see where we land when we get to that point.
So that would be approving the extension?
You would be accepting the extension as offered.
I make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on approving the extension. Any discussion? Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You got the order. Thank you. Motion carries.
The next one, 712 Ash Drive, is a very simple subdivision, which is a nice breath of fresh air for a change. It's simply, we have 2 lots along Ash Drive. There's actually a 3rd lot located in behind them, and the owner wants to subdivide that lot in half and add 1/2 of it to each one of the properties. Really straightforward.
So
It's what we want because we don't like to have lots that don't have street frontage. We like all of our lots to be on a street. So this moves that lot towards that. So Planning Commission reviewed it. They recommended that council would entertain approving it, and that's what's in front of you.
And Chuck, you're on board with it being the Planning Commission representative?
Yep, makes
Okay.
sense.
Would you make the motion?
Make a motion.
Second. Tim, thank you. Any discussion?
The only question is, I want to highlight the fact that you said that was all front footage, correct?
Yeah, the lot that's being cut up has no frontage at all right now. So as it will be added to these 2 lots, half will have frontage on this one and half will have frontage now on that one. So there'll be no more landlocked.
So it's a subdivision and then a reverse subdivision of the remaining pieces?
It's a subdivision and a lot merger all in one.
Lot merger, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a couple more like that around the borough. I don't know why.
So we have a motion and a second.
Motion.
No discussion. Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
Last, Public Safety, Cherry Tree Phase 1, approve the ordinance for the parking restrictions. Is anyone the sponsor of that? Chief?
So this goes back, Grant Drive, Blossom, Spencer, that area, back to like 17, 18. The existing wording and signage was posted was very confusing and hard to enforce. Lieutenant Blunty and AJ Grimm went out 3 weeks ago and did some measurements, and the wording there in front of you is more concise and consistent and will help enforcing the no parking zones in that section. As you know, that development there, the streets are narrow to begin with. and parking is a premium, so it's always been an issue. This will just help us with that enforcement.
Do you think this will be better accepted by the property owners?
I would hope so, and I think it'll be easier to understand.
Okay. So, someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. A second?
Second.
Tim, thank you. Those in favor, or any discussion?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
All right. In favor, aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, reports of council members, council committees, or other public bodies. Do we have anything for there? Manager reports. And do we have any correspondence and information, Amy?
I have something.
Oh, Sue, I'm sorry.
So there was an, I'm just going to be really brief with it. There was an incident at the middle school recently, and so I received some correspondence from Dr. Scola, and I just wanted to point out how they were able to identify the individual making the threat against Hanover Middle School. The police quick response efforts and professionalism were evident and sincerely appreciated. So just want to give a little kudos to our police department.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Congratulations. We got that? I guess there were 2 additional public comment. Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to make a comment? Come forward. State your name and address. Anyone online? Justine, is it just you?
Just her.
Okay.
I have 2 questions before we end
You've
the
already
meeting.
asked all your questions. Go ahead.
Okay, the stormwater fund, what is the amount? Do we know, Dory, what the amount is in the stormwater fund?
Should be in the budget.
Yeah, it's in the budget. It's
Well, I
$1.1 million or
looked at it
$1.2
and I
million, the last I
didn't see it.
remember.
Thank you.
Isn't it about 1.4 million?
Yes.
Is it one?
Is it
I thought
1.4 million?
it was one.
Annually, it's
Okay.
1.4 million, I believe.
All right.
How much did we take anything out of that stormwater fund?
Yes.
Yes.
How
Yes,
much?
we spend it all.
We spend almost the majority of it. We've
Per
got-
year?
Per year.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to know. That's what I was going after.
What,
And the date of the next stormwater meeting, when is that? Somebody said they thought it was every 3 months.
Second Thursday in January.
The what?
Second Thursday in January.
Thank you.
And I guess the Economic Enhancement Committee is the same way, because I don't see that here on December schedule, so that puts us into January.
Same thing? Okay, thank you.
Do you know what day that one typically is?
Yeah, that is, just as an aside, that's not on the website, the Stormwater Authority meeting.
it's on,
Yeah, it is.
it is.
Oh, it is? Well, maybe I only looked in December.
Yeah, we don't have one in December because it's every other.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
And we don't have 2023 on there yet because that'll be on council's agenda for next month for the sunshine law when the meetings, for the meeting calendar
Okay?
for 2023.
Any other comments? I think Tim's getting ready to go here. All right. I guess we'll adjourn then at 8:45.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Make a motion
Second.
to adjourn. Second, third, fourth. All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your